name is Claire Whitman, 27 years old. And yesterday, my parents showed me exactly what family meant to them. It wasn't love. It wasn't care. It was a demand, signed, sealed, delivered like a threat. I just landed the job people dream of, $650,000 a year. Years of grinding, studying through sleepless nights, clawing my way through internships no one else wanted. And instead of pride, instead of, "We're so proud of you," my mother spat greed in my face. 50% for us, 30% for your sister. No excuses. My father didn't blink. He just added the final knife. "You'll do this without questions or get out of our lives." That's the moment something snapped. I smiled, silent, while my chest burned. Then, in the quietest voice I've ever heard myself speak, I said, "Of course." And by that afternoon, every drawer in my apartment was empty. Every bill they had tied to my account?
Cut.
Every luxury they paraded as their own?
Gone.
I locked my new place by the ocean, breathed in freedom, and knew the war had only just begun. Because you see, what happens when the family who tried to own you suddenly realizes you've disappeared from their lease? What happens when the hands that fed them vanish overnight? The answer came sooner than I thought. And it didn't come quietly. The first call came at 6:07 a.m. It was my mother, her voice shrill, trembling with outrage. "Claire, the mortgage company just called. They said the payment bounced. You need to fix this right now." I sat on my balcony, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise melt gold over the water. I didn't answer. By noon, my father's name lit up my phone. Voicemail after voicemail, each one louder, angrier. "Do you think you can embarrass us like this? Your mother's having a breakdown. Your sister has modeling expenses. You owe us. We made you. Without us, you're nothing." But the thing about threats? They lose power once you stop being afraid. That evening, a message from my sister came through, syrupy sweet at first, then bitter when I didn't reply. "You're selfish. Do you know how many sacrifices I made for you? You're going to regret this. Everyone's already talking about what a cold-hearted monster you are." Monster.
Funny, isn't it?
When I was paying their bills, funding their parties, and keeping their lights on, I was their golden daughter. The second I pulled the plug, I became the villain. But villains have something my family never understood: control. And I wasn't done yet. Because they had built their entire lives on my income. Their friends, their reputation, their status. Every bit of it borrowed from my success. Now, one by one, those pillars were about to crumble. And when they did, they would learn the truth they'd buried for years. The daughter they called nothing had become everything they needed. By the third day, the calls weren't just coming from them anymore. It was the bank manager, the country club secretary, even their church treasurer. Each voicemail was the same melody, embarrassment wrapped in urgency. "Mr. and Mrs. Whitman, your membership dues are 3 months overdue. The credit card tied to your daughter's account has been declined. The utilities will be shut off by Friday." I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. Because while my father once boasted at dinner parties, "Our Claire takes care of everything. She's the pride of this family." Now, those same people whispered about how quickly the Whitmans had fallen. My mother tried to spin it, of course. She called me, her voice dripping with practiced charm. "Sweetheart, you know we only pushed you because we love you. Your sister's dreams matter too. Just a little help so people don't misunderstand." But beneath the gloss, I heard it. Desperation. That night, I opened the financial folder I'd kept hidden. Every transfer, every payment, every indulgence they'd passed off as family necessities. Designer handbags, trips to Maui, car payments for my sister's BMW. All charged to me. I stared at the numbers, my chest heavy with years of betrayal. And then, with one click, I forwarded the entire file. To the mortgage company. To the credit bureau. To their so-called friends. Not out of cruelty. Out of clarity. If they wanted me to be their provider, their safety net, their scapegoat, then they could finally see what they had turned me into. The mask was cracking. And tomorrow, the entire facade would shatter. It happened at the charity gala. The same event where my parents strutted every year in glittering gowns and tailored suits, parading me around like a trophy they had raised. This time, they walked in alone. My sister clung to their arms, but the whispers started before they'd even reached the champagne table. Didn't Claire use to cover their donations? Strange. I heard the Whitmans' checks bounce last month. Imagine living in that mansion and not being able to keep the lights on. My mother's smile strained like glass about to crack. My father tried to laugh it off, booming about temporary glitches. But the more they laughed, the louder the room seemed to hum against them. And then came the moment that sealed it. The auctioneer stepped onto the stage, announcing a pledged tier of $50,000 for children's hospitals. My father lifted his hand automatically, until the auctioneer's assistant leaned down and whispered something. "Sir, I'm afraid your account no longer qualifies." The microphone wasn't muted. The room froze. Every eye turned to them. I watched from the back, unseen, a soft smile tugging my lips. For years, they had used me to buy their image of wealth, generosity, and power. Without me, they were nothing but smoke and mirrors. My sister tried to salvage it, muttering about how Claire would step in. But the truth had already spilled across the marble floors. The Whitmans weren't benefactors. They were beggars dressed in silk. And as their faces burned red, I realized something delicious. This wasn't revenge. This was revelation. And it was only just beginning. The pounding on my door started just after midnight. 3 sharp fists, frantic, like the house itself might cave in if I didn't answer. Through the peephole, I saw them. My mother in her pearls, her mascara smudged like war paint, my father's jaw trembling though he tried to look defiant. My sister stood behind them, arms crossed, eyes darting like she'd been dragged there against her will. "Claire," my mother cried, voice cracking. Please open the door. You don't understand. We're losing everything." I stayed silent, letting the night stretch long. Then my father's voice, lower, harsher. "You're our daughter. This is your duty. You don't get to abandon us. UOWES." That word, oh. It was the same word he used when he took my savings account in college to fix the roof. When Mom emptied my emergency fund to cover my sister's tuition after she dropped out for the 3rd time. When they told me my promotions and my exhaustion didn't matter because family comes first, but only when it meant them. Finally, I opened the door just a crack. Just enough for them to see my face in the golden light. "No," I whispered, calm as ice. "I don't owe you. You took everything I gave, and you buried me in debt that was never mine. And now you want more? I'm not your bank. I'm not your lifeline. I'm not your scapegoat." My mother's lips trembled. My father's fists clenched. And then, quietly, I closed the door. The lock clicked. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. But in that silence I knew, tomorrow, they'd crawl lower than they ever had before. And I was ready. By morning, the headlines were already out. Whitman's default on pledges. Local power couple exposed as fraud. Daughter distances herself amid scandal. I didn't leak anything. I didn't have to. When you build your empire on borrowed money and borrowed pride, the cracks eventually scream louder than the walls. At the office, colleagues stopped by my desk, whispering. Not about me, but about them. "Did you see the news?" I always wondered how they managed those donations. "Claire, you must be humiliated." But I wasn't. For the first time in my life, I felt weightless. By noon, my phone lit up again. Not just with calls. With pleas. Texts from my sister. "Claire, can you just cover one payment, please? I'll pay you back this time. Mom hasn't eaten since yesterday. Dad says he'll apologize." That last one almost made me laugh. Apologize? After years of telling me my worth was tied to how much I handed over? After demanding slices of my salary before I could even cash the check? I didn't respond. By evening, they showed up again. Not at my home this time, but at the gates of my office tower. Disheveled. Small. Reporters caught the whole scene, my mother gripping the bars, my father shouting my name, my sister hiding her face. And there I was, stepping into the lobby in a tailored suit, pausing just long enough for the cameras to catch me looking at them. No pity, no anger, just distance. I walked away, each step echoing like a verdict. And in that moment I realized their collapse wasn't my revenge. It was their own doing. But the final act? That was mine to deliver. That night, a letter slid under my door. Handwritten. The script was shaky, ink smudged. My father's voice came alive in the lines. Claire, we were wrong. We see it now. Please, just one chance. We have nothing left. No home, no credit, no dignity. Your mother can't sleep. Your sister cries all day. If there's a shred of love left in you, meet us tomorrow. We'll explain. For a moment, I stood frozen. Once upon a time, I would have sprinted to them. I would have begged to make things right, even when I was the one bleeding. But those days were gone. Still, I went, not to save them, but to end it. We met at a cheap diner off the highway, far from the places they once flaunted. The smell of burnt coffee clung to the air. They sat in a cracked booth, smaller than I'd ever seen them. My mother's pearls were gone. My father's jacket frayed at the cuffs. My sister's mascara streaked her cheeks. They looked ordinary, almost human. Claire, my mother whispered, voice stripped of venom. Please, just help us back on our feet. One loan, one deposit. We'll pay you back. I stirred my coffee slowly, the clink of the spoon slicing the silence. You used to laugh at me, I said softly. Called me weak. Called me worthless. And now you want me to carry you again. My father reached across the table, desperate. We'll do better this time. We'll change. I pulled my hand back.
Come.
Final. No, I said. I've already paid more than anyone should. Their faces fell, collapsing like paper castles in the rain. I stood, left a few bills for the coffee, and walked out. Behind me, I heard nothing. No screams. No threats. Just the quiet sound of their defeat. And I knew the next step was mine alone, the closing of the circle. The ocean stretched wide outside my window, waves rolling in steady, calm. My new home was quiet. No slammed doors, no demands, no voices slicing me open. Just silence, warm and alive. I thought about that diner. Their faces. The way my mother's eyes begged, the way my father's pride cracked, the way my sister crumbled when the mirror of their own cruelty was finally turned on them. They thought money made them untouchable. They thought I was the weak link, the one they could control, cut, bleed dry. But the truth? The more they took, the stronger I became, until I had nothing left to give, except myself. And that was enough. I poured my energy into what they never valued. My work, my peace, my chosen family. Friends who loved me not for what I handed over, but for who I was. Late nights filled with laughter instead of shame. Mornings where the only expectation was coffee and sunlight. My parents and sister? They found a cramped rental on the edge of town. No more charity galas, no more designer gowns, no more headlines praising their philanthropy. People whispered now, not about me, but about how quickly their empire turned to dust. And I didn't gloat. I didn't seek revenge in fire or fury. My revenge was simpler, a life untouched by their shadows. As I closed the balcony doors, a final thought lingered, poetic, sharp, true. They demanded half of my world. In the end, I gave them nothing. And nothing is exactly what they became.